Stop trying to fix yourself so quickly. Not every unfinished thing is broken. Some things are still becoming, and maybe that is the hardest truth to accept in modern life. You wake up every morning feeling like you are standing in the hallway of your own existence. Not fully who you were, not yet who you could become, just suspended there, half-written, like a sentence abandoned mid-thought. And nobody really talks about this feeling honestly, because the world worships completed stories, finished bodies, finished careers, finished identities. People only celebrate the polished version of a human being, the final form. The success story, packaged neatly enough to fit inside captions and interviews and thumbnails and biographies. But most of life is not lived there. Most of life is lived in the middle, in uncertainty, in confusion, in transition. In the silent, invisible years where nothing seems fully formed yet. And those years can feel unbearable, especially now. Especially in 2026, because today everybody is visible all the time. Everyone is broadcasting milestones, announcing achievements, curating identities, displaying certainty like it is a survival requirement. You scroll through endless images of people who seem complete, confident, certain, already arrived, and slowly you begin to feel defective for still searching, for still questioning, for still changing your mind. You start believing your unfinished state is evidence of failure instead of evidence of humanity. But what if this feeling is not dysfunction? What if feeling unfinished is actually proof that something inside you is still alive, still moving, still resisting stagnation? Because dead things are complete. A finished building no longer grows. A closed book no longer changes. A summarized life no longer evolves. Only living things remain unfinished. Only conscious people feel the tension between what they are and what they could become. And maybe that tension is sacred. Maybe the ache you feel is not emptiness. Maybe it is expansion trying to happen inside a culture obsessed with instant definition. The modern world hates ambiguity. It wants labels immediately. Clear identities, quick explanations, simple categories. People become uncomfortable when they cannot summarize you quickly, so they pressure you to decide who you are before you have even met yourself fully. Pick a career, pick a personality, pick a tribe, pick a purpose. Pick a version of yourself and stay there permanently so the world can process you easier. But human beings are not machines assembled once and finalized forever. We are conversations, contradictions, drafts constantly rewriting themselves through experience. And somewhere along the way, many people stopped allowing themselves to evolve because evolution started feeling socially dangerous. Changing your mind became weakness. Taking time became laziness. Not knowing became embarrassment. So people began rushing themselves toward false certainty just to escape the discomfort of feeling unfinished. And that creates a quiet tragedy. A world filled with people performing identities they outgrew years ago. People trapped inside old versions of themselves because certainty feels safer than transformation. You can see it in their eyes sometimes. That strange exhaustion, that invisible grief, the pain of becoming emotionally trapped inside a life that no longer reflects who they are becoming internally. Because growth is rarely clean. Real transformation is disorienting. It dismantles things, destroys assumptions, rearranges desires. There are moments during evolution where you no longer recognize your old self, but still cannot clearly see the new self either. And that in-between space can feel terrifying. Lonely, like standing in fog while everyone else appears to move confidently forward. But confidence is often performance. Most people are improvising their existence quietly. They just learned how to hide the uncertainty better. Under aesthetics, under productivity, under constant noise. But late at night, many people secretly feel the same thing, like they are waiting for their real life to begin, waiting to become enough. Waiting to finally feel complete, Yet life is already happening meanwhile. The days are passing. The body is aging. People are loving you in versions you still apologize for. Sunsets are arriving while you remain emotionally absent from your own existence because you keep believing the real you exists somewhere in the future. That is the tragedy, not incompleteness itself, but postponing your right to exist fully until you become someone else. Because there is no final version of you waiting at the end of life. There is only continuous becoming, continuous revision, continuous unfolding, and it takes enormous courage to accept that honestly, to wake up unfinished and continue anyway, to create while uncertain, to love while healing, to move while confused, to remain open despite not knowing how the story resolves. That kind of courage is quiet, invisible. It will never trend online. Nobody applauds the person who simply keeps going while internally fragmented, but maybe they should, because maintenance of the soul requires more bravery than performance ever will. To exist without clarity, without applause, without guarantees, and still choose not to abandon yourself, that is a profound kind of strength, a sacred kind of endurance. Maybe the strongest people are not the ones who found themselves. Maybe they are the ones who stopped demanding that life provide a finished answer before allowing themselves to live. The ones who learned how to breathe inside uncertainty instead of treating uncertainty like failure. Because there is something deeply human about remaining unfinished, a strange beauty in becoming, a quiet dignity in refusing premature conclusions. And perhaps your life was never meant to become a perfectly polished sentence. Perhaps it was meant to remain open, expanding, evolving, still reaching toward language large enough to contain who you are becoming. The ache of the incomplete. There is a silent epidemic spreading through modern life. People are waiting for permission to begin existing, waiting for the perfect version of themselves. The perfect body, the perfect confidence, the perfect career, the perfect clarity, the perfect moment where everything finally feels aligned enough to deserve presence. And while they wait, life keeps happening without them. Birthdays pass unnoticed emotionally. Conversations become background noise. Dreams stay trapped inside notebooks and late-night thoughts. People move through their own lives like temporary visitors instead of participants, always preparing, rarely arriving. That is the ache of the incomplete. The feeling that your real life exists somewhere ahead of you rather than here, right now, inside this unfinished moment. Modern existence intensifies this feeling constantly, because today, humanity lives inside an endless digital museum of completed identities. You open your phone and immediately encounter thousands of people who appear fully formed. People with certainty, direction, aesthetic coherence, clear purpose. Everyone looks like a finished masterpiece hanging proudly beneath perfect lighting. And then there is you, still changing, still uncertain, still trying to understand your own mind, still carrying contradictions that refuse to resolve neatly. So naturally you begin to feel defective, like a rough draft accidentally placed beside polished novels, like an unfinished sentence surrounded by completed stories. But what social media never shows you is this: most people are editing themselves in real time. They are curating conclusions while privately living through confusion. The internet rewards completed narratives. Nobody uploads the long silence between transformations. Nobody documents the emotional fog honestly, the insecurity, the aimlessness, the identity collapse, the strange grief of outgrowing yourself while not yet recognizing what comes next. Those moments remain hidden, which creates the illusion that everyone else has already arrived. And that illusion becomes psychologically devastating over time, especially in 2026. Because visibility has become relentless now. There is no escape from comparison anymore. Every platform functions like a mirror designed to distort your self-perception. You witness strangers succeeding before breakfast, becoming wealthy before 25, building audiences overnight, transforming their bodies in 30-second montages. Speaking with certainty, you still cannot locate within yourself, and slowly the algorithm begins whispering something dangerous into your nervous system. You are behind. That sentence alone has shattered countless people internally, because once you believe you are behind in life, presence becomes impossible. Everything becomes contaminated by urgency. You stop experiencing moments, you measure them. You stop growing naturally. You start panicking strategically. Every decision becomes haunted by invisible timelines. You rush relationships because loneliness feels like failure. Rush careers because uncertainty feels humiliating. Rush healing because pain feels socially unacceptable. Rush identity itself because modern culture treats confusion like weakness. And eventually, you become exhausted not from life itself, but from constantly trying to catch up to an imaginary finish line. But finish lines are illusions. Human beings are not projects meant to be finalized permanently. There is no complete version of you waiting patiently at the end of self-improvement. There is only movement, evolution, revision. You are not a machine approaching completion. You are a living thing expanding through experience, and expansion often feels messy, unclear, emotionally inconsistent. A forest does not apologize for growing unevenly. The ocean does not apologize for changing shape constantly. Only humans punish themselves for still becoming, because modern society transformed growth into performance. Now people do not merely want to evolve. They want visible evidence of evolution immediately. Faster healing, faster success, faster transformation. Everything accelerated, everything optimized. But the soul does not move at algorithmic speed. Some realizations take years. Some wounds untangle slowly. Some identities require destruction before reconstruction becomes possible. And this slowness terrifies people now, because stillness forces confrontation. Silence reveals uncertainty, and uncertainty threatens the illusion of control. So people distract themselves endlessly. Constant stimulation, constant productivity, constant reinvention. Anything to avoid sitting quietly with the uncomfortable truth. I do not fully know who I am yet, but maybe nobody ever completely does. Maybe identity itself is not a destination. Maybe it is an ongoing conversation between memory and possibility, between past versions and future potential. And if that is true, then incompleteness is not a flaw in human existence. It is the foundation of it. Still, the ache remains real. There are nights where being unfinished feels unbearably heavy. Nights where you look at your life and see only fragments. Unrealized potential, abandoned versions of yourself, dreams half-built, conversations unsaid. A strange emotional homesickness for a person you have not fully become yet. That feeling can consume people quietly, especially those who think deeply, especially those sensitive enough to notice the gap between their inner world and external reality, because awareness amplifies incompleteness. The more conscious you become, the harder it becomes to pretend certainty. You start noticing contradictions everywhere. Inside society, inside relationships, inside yourself. And suddenly existence feels less like a stable identity and more like an unfinished manuscript constantly rewriting itself while you attempt to read it. That can feel terrifying, but there is another way to see it. What if your unfinished state is not evidence that you are failing? What if it is evidence that you are still open, still flexible, still capable of transformation? A finished identity cannot evolve. A concluded story cannot surprise itself. But an unfinished life contains possibility, movement, potential energy waiting beneath uncertainty. Perhaps the real tragedy is not feeling incomplete. Perhaps the real tragedy is forcing yourself into premature conclusions just to escape discomfort, becoming emotionally rigid too early, accepting labels that no longer fit, settling into identities that slowly suffocate your spirit, all because uncertainty felt unbearable. But uncertainty is not always the enemy. Sometimes uncertainty is the corridor between old consciousness and new consciousness. Sometimes confusion means your mind is expanding beyond frameworks that once confined it. Sometimes feeling lost is proof that you no longer belong inside the map you were given. And maybe that is why this ache exists. Not to punish you, but to keep you moving, to keep you searching honestly, to prevent your soul from hardening into something artificial. Because there is quiet wisdom in remaining unfinished. A strange intimacy with life itself. After all, the moon is beautiful precisely because it moves through phases. The sky changes every hour. The ocean never repeats itself exactly. Nature itself refuses permanent completion. Only humans demand impossible finality from themselves while standing inside a universe built entirely on transformation. So maybe you do not need to solve your incompleteness immediately. Maybe you only need the courage to inhabit it without shame, to stop treating your evolving nature like a problem, to stop apologizing for still becoming. Because some of the most profound human beings in history died unfinished, still searching, still questioning, still expanding, and perhaps that was never weakness. Perhaps it was proof they remained alive until the very end. The trap of the premature conclusion. Human beings hate uncertainty, not intellectually, nervously, physically. Uncertainty crawls beneath the skin. It keeps people awake at night, makes silence feel heavier, makes the future feel unstable. And because uncertainty feels so uncomfortable, most people spend their lives trying to escape it as quickly as possible. Not understand themselves, not deepen themselves, escape themselves. That is why modern culture became obsessed with instant transformation, instant healing, instant confidence, instant identity. Everything reduced to quick resolutions and simplified narratives. People no longer ask, "Who am I becoming?" They ask, "How fast can I stop feeling confused?" And that question creates enormous damage. Because the desperate need for certainty often forces people into identities that were never truly theirs. Look around carefully. Many people are not living authentic lives. They are living emergency solutions. Versions of themselves built hastily to escape discomfort. A personality created for acceptance. A career chosen to silence fear. A relationship used to avoid loneliness. A philosophy adopted because ambiguity became unbearable. People rush toward conclusions the same way drowning people rush toward floating debris. Not because it is right, because panic demands immediate structure. And modern life amplifies this panic constantly. Everywhere you turn, there is pressure to define yourself quickly. Tell us who you are. What do you do? What is your purpose? What kind of person are you? As if identity should arrive fully assembled before adulthood even begins. As if human beings are products instead of evolving ecosystems. So people start constructing answers prematurely. Not honest answers, stable answers, socially acceptable answers. Answers that reduce anxiety, and eventually those answers harden into prisons. That is the trap of the premature conclusion. The moment a person stops exploring themselves honestly because certainty feels safer than truth. You can see this everywhere now. People forcing confidence before self-trust exists. Forcing happiness before grief is processed. Forcing purpose before curiosity has matured. Forcing relationships before self-understanding develops. Everyone rushing toward becoming someone while secretly disconnected from themselves internally. The world rewards performance heavily. So naturally, people learn how to perform identity before they actually embody it. They learn the language of healing without healing, the aesthetics of confidence without confidence, the performance of wisdom without lived understanding. And at first, it works. Externally, people applaud, approve, validate, but internally, something begins collapsing quietly. Because false certainty exhausts the soul. Pretending to be complete while feeling fragmented creates psychological friction impossible to sustain forever. Eventually, the mask grows heavier than the face beneath it. And many people spend years carrying identities they secretly resent because those identities earned them survival. That is the tragedy, not confusion itself, but abandoning honest evolution to become digestible for the world. There is immense pressure now to summarize yourself quickly, especially online. Platforms reward simplicity, simple personalities, simple beliefs, simple labels. The algorithm loves certainty because certainty is easier to market. But real human beings are not simple. They are contradictory, layered, fluid, one day strong, another day terrified, growing in one area while collapsing in another. Human consciousness moves like weather, not architecture, but the modern world struggles to tolerate this complexity. So people begin editing themselves into coherence artificially, cutting away uncertainty, hiding contradiction, suppressing transformation, all to appear stable enough for public consumption. And slowly they lose contact with the living parts of themselves, the unfinished parts, the searching parts, the honest parts, because unfinished people make society uncomfortable. An unfinished person cannot be categorized easily, cannot be predicted easily, cannot be controlled easily. So there is constant pressure to resolve yourself prematurely. Choose your final form, stay there, remain understandable, but life does not work that way. Real growth dismantles identities repeatedly. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can say is, "I no longer know." That sentence terrifies people now because certainty became status. Admitting confusion feels socially dangerous. Yet confusion is often the birthplace of deeper awareness. Every meaningful transformation begins with disorientation, a collapse of old assumptions, a painful shedding of certainty. You cannot become someone new without grieving who you thought you were first. But grief takes time. Transformation takes time. The soul reorganizes itself slowly, and modern culture has almost no patience for slow becoming anymore. Everything must be immediate, visible, optimized, but inner evolution refuses industrial speed. Some parts of you require silence before they can speak clearly. Some identities must dissolve gradually. Some truths arrive only after years of wandering emotionally through uncertainty. And wandering is not failure. It is developmental friction. That friction matters. A seed breaks underground before anyone sees growth. A cathedral spends years surrounded by scaffolding before becoming beautiful. Even nature understands the necessity of incomplete phases. Only humans shame themselves for not blooming instantly. But there is wisdom hidden inside unfinished seasons. When you do not know exactly who you are, you remain open, adaptable, curious, alive. A finalized identity often becomes rigid, defensive, afraid of change, afraid of contradiction, afraid of admitting evolution. But unfinished people still possess movement within them, and movement is sacred, because stagnant people may appear stable externally while slowly dying internally. You can feel it sometimes when talking to certain people. They speak like completed books. No curiosity left, no openness left, no uncertainty left, only conclusions. And conclusions can become emotional coffins when held too tightly. Perhaps that is why some people feel strangely disconnected despite having figured everything out. Because the human spirit was not designed for permanent finality. It was designed for expansion, revision, discovery, and yes, discovery can feel painful. There are moments during becoming where you feel like emotional debris floating between identities, too changed to return backward, too undefined to move forward confidently. That space feels lonely, but loneliness is not always abandonment. Sometimes it is reconstruction. Sometimes life removes old certainty because deeper truth requires more room to emerge. The problem is that most people interpret this transition as personal failure. They panic, rush toward labels, rush toward relationships, rush toward distractions, anything to stop feeling unfinished. But what if the unfinished stage is not the problem? What if the rushing is? What if the discomfort you are trying to eliminate is actually shaping you carefully beneath the surface? Because pressure creates structure. Silence creates clarity. Waiting creates depth. The people who rush themselves toward conclusions often become emotionally shallow versions of themselves. But the people willing to remain open during uncertainty develop something different. Depth, patience, inner flexibility. A relationship with existence that is not dependent on constant clarity. That is rare now, extremely rare. Most people need immediate answers to feel emotionally safe. But perhaps maturity is learning how to exist without complete answers. How to breathe inside unresolved spaces without collapsing. How to trust becoming without demanding instant completion. Because your life is not a multiple-choice test waiting for the correct label. It is a living process, a continuous unfolding. And maybe the goal was never to finalize yourself completely. Maybe the goal was to remain honest enough to keep evolving long after the world demanded a conclusion. The architecture of the fragment. Walk through an unfinished cathedral. Not the polished version tourists photograph afterward. The unfinished one. Scaffolding exposed, dust in the air, stone half-carved, open ceilings where sunlight enters through absence instead of design. And yet somehow, it still feels sacred, maybe even more sacred, because there is something profoundly moving about witnessing creation while it is still becoming itself. You see the intention, the struggle, the architecture reaching toward completion without pretending it has already arrived. And perhaps human beings are not so different. Perhaps the reason unfinished people feel so emotionally raw is because exposed construction always looks vulnerable. We live in a world obsessed with polished surfaces, finished products, completed identities. Everyone wants to appear whole, certain, resolved, but some of the most beautiful things in existence are fragments still assembling themselves. A symphony unfinished, a city rebuilding after collapse, a poem abandoned mid-sentence, a person slowly reconstructing themselves after heartbreak. There is dignity in visible becoming, a strange beauty in structural honesty, because fragments tell the truth. They do not pretend. A cracked wall does not fake perfection. An unfinished cathedral does not apologize for scaffolding. Only humans feel pressured to hide their incompleteness as if growth itself were embarrassing. But growth has always looked chaotic during the process. Nature understands this instinctively. Forests burn before new ecosystems emerge. Mountains fracture slowly over centuries. Stars collapse before creating heavier elements capable of sustaining life. Creation itself often requires destruction first. Yet people panic the moment their inner world stops looking organized. The moment identity becomes unclear. The moment old certainty crumbles. They assume collapse means failure. But sometimes collapse is architecture rearranging itself. Sometimes confusion is construction noise. You are not always breaking apart. Sometimes you are being rebuilt in ways your current mind cannot fully understand yet. That is why unfinished people often carry invisible grief. Not because they are weak, because becoming requires repeated deaths of old selves, old beliefs, old dreams, old identities, and every transformation leaves emotional debris behind. Most people do not realize how painful growth actually is. They romanticize evolution, but real transformation destabilizes you first. It dismantles familiar structures, removes old foundations, forces you to stand temporarily inside uncertainty while new parts of yourself slowly emerge. That process rarely feels inspiring while living through it. It feels disorienting, like wandering through rooms inside yourself that no longer resemble home. But this is where the metaphor of the unfinished cathedral matters deeply. An unfinished structure still possesses integrity. Even incomplete, it can remain magnificent. Because value does not come solely from completion. It comes from design, from intention, from what the structure is reaching toward. And perhaps you have been measuring yourself incorrectly this entire time. Maybe your worth is not determined by how finished you feel. Maybe it is determined by whether your foundation remains honest, whether your inner architecture still points toward truth, toward growth, toward meaning, toward something larger than performance. Modern culture teaches people to obsess over missing pieces. Everything becomes deficit-focused. Not enough money, not enough beauty, not enough success, not enough certainty, not enough healing. People stare so intensely at what is absent that they stop appreciating what is already standing. But cathedrals are not admired only because of what remains unfinished. They are admired because the existing structure already reveals vision. And your life works the same way. Even fragmented, there are still parts of you standing courageously. Your kindness survived. Your curiosity survived. Your sensitivity survived. Your ability to hope survived despite disappointment. That matters more than you realize, because many people become emotionally hollow long before they become externally successful. The structure remains standing externally while the interior empties completely. But unfinished souls still possess movement, and movement means possibility. That is the hidden power of remaining unfinished. Fluidity, adaptability, openness. A finalized identity often becomes brittle, defensive, afraid to evolve. But unfinished people remain flexible enough to transform. Water survives because it adapts shape constantly. Trees survive storms because they bend instead of resisting rigidly. Yet modern society glorifies emotional rigidity as strength. Never change, never doubt, never pause. Always project certainty. But certainty can become a prison when clung to too tightly. Some people spend decades protecting identities that no longer fit them simply because changing feels humiliating. So they remain emotionally trapped inside outdated versions of themselves. Safe perhaps, but no longer alive internally. That is the danger of becoming finished too early. You stop listening, stop questioning, stop expanding. The architecture closes permanently. But unfinished people still contain open windows, and open windows allow light to enter. This is why fragmented seasons often deepen people spiritually. Suffering cracks the surface. Confusion dismantles arrogance. Loss exposes emotional truths that comfort keeps hidden. Painful experiences create openings where deeper awareness can eventually grow. Not immediately, sometimes years later, but eventually. And when you look back, you realize the fragment was never meaningless. The unfinished season was shaping the architecture itself, strengthening invisible foundations, teaching patience, teaching humility, teaching presence. Because there is wisdom that only incomplete people can access. The wisdom of uncertainty, the wisdom of rebuilding, the wisdom of existing without guaranteed resolution. That kind of wisdom creates gentleness in people, depth, compassion, an understanding that human beings are not machines requiring constant optimization. They are living structures evolving across time, and evolution is rarely symmetrical. Some parts of you may grow while others remain wounded. Some dreams may flourish while others decay. You may become wiser emotionally while still feeling lost professionally. Human growth is uneven by nature. That does not make you defective. It makes you real. Maybe the deepest mistake modern people make is believing they must become flawless before they deserve peace. But peace was never reserved only for completed people. Otherwise, nobody would ever experience it. Perhaps peace begins the moment you stop treating your fragments like evidence against your worth. The moment you stop apologizing for still being under construction. The moment you realize scaffolding is not shameful. It is proof something important is still being built. And maybe your life was never meant to become a perfectly polished monument frozen in certainty forever. Maybe it was meant to remain dynamic, breathing, open-ended, a cathedral still reaching upward long after others demanded completion. Because the most extraordinary structures in human history were not built quickly. They were built patiently, stone by stone, year by year, often by people who would never live long enough to see the finished version themselves. Yet they kept building anyway, and perhaps that is the real courage required in life. To keep building yourself honestly, even when you cannot yet see what you are becoming. Steady rhythms in the liminal space. There is a form of bravery nobody talks about anymore. Not heroic bravery, not cinematic bravery, not the kind rewarded with applause or admiration. A quieter kind, the bravery of continuing. The bravery of maintaining yourself while nothing externally confirms that your effort matters yet. Waking up again, trying again, breathing again, showing up again, even while feeling unresolved internally. Especially while feeling unresolved internally. That is maintenance bravery. And modern culture barely recognizes it because maintenance is not dramatic enough for attention economies. The internet celebrates breakthroughs, transformations, overnight success, before and after stories. But real life is mostly repetition. Slow repetition, invisible repetition. The kind that does not look impressive while it is happening. A person brushing their teeth while depressed. A person going to work while grieving privately. A person studying late at night while doubting themselves constantly. A person choosing not to disappear emotionally despite feeling fragmented. These moments rarely become inspirational stories online, yet they are often the most courageous moments in human existence. Because maintenance requires faith without immediate evidence. It requires continuing before clarity arrives, and clarity almost never arrives first. That is the painful part. Most people believe motivation creates movement, but often movement creates meaning. You begin walking before certainty appears. You begin building before confidence arrives. You begin healing before you fully believe healing is possible. That is how life actually unfolds, quietly, incrementally, one ordinary act at a time. But people today struggle deeply with ordinary continuity, because modern life destroyed humanity's relationship with rhythm. Everything became extreme. Extreme stimulation, extreme productivity, extreme reinvention. People oscillate between obsession and collapse, hypermotivation followed by emotional exhaustion. All or nothing cycles. And eventually they burn themselves out trying to become extraordinary quickly. But sustainable transformation rarely happens explosively. It happens rhythmically, like breathing, like tides, like seasons. Nature itself evolves through repetition. The ocean reaches the shore millions of times. Trees grow ring by ring. The moon returns patiently through phases without rushing toward fullness. Yet humans panic whenever growth becomes gradual. We mistake slowness for stagnation, stillness for failure, routine for insignificance. But routine is often what keeps fractured people alive long enough to become whole again. There is profound wisdom in small consistencies. Making your bed, taking a walk, drinking water, reading a few pages, sitting quietly for 10 minutes without distraction. Tiny rituals anchor the nervous system when identity itself feels unstable. They create rhythm inside psychological chaos. And rhythm matters deeply during unfinished seasons. Because when you do not know who you are becoming yet, structure becomes emotional shelter, not rigid control, gentle cadence. a pattern that keeps you connected to existence while larger answers remain unresolved. This is especially important now, because modern life constantly pulls people out of themselves. Notifications, algorithms, noise, comparison, information storms arriving faster than the human nervous system evolved to process. People rarely sit with themselves anymore. Silence became uncomfortable. Stillness became suspicious. So many individuals live in perpetual emotional acceleration while secretly exhausted beyond language. And exhaustion distorts identity. When people are chronically overwhelmed, they lose connection with their deeper rhythms. Everything becomes reactive, urgent, artificial. That is why mindfulness matters far beyond productivity or wellness culture. Mindfulness is remembrance, a return to presence, a refusal to abandon yourself emotionally while the world screams for your attention constantly. To breathe consciously, to notice sunlight entering a room, to hear your own thoughts clearly again, to eat slowly, walk slowly, exist intentionally for even a few moments. These acts appear small externally, but psychologically they are acts of rebellion against fragmentation, because fragmented people live entirely in anticipation. The next version, the next achievement, the next fix. But mindful people begin inhabiting life before resolution arrives, and that changes something fundamental internally. You stop treating existence like a waiting room. You begin participating in your own life again, even unfinished, especially unfinished. This is difficult though, very difficult, because unresolved people often feel guilty for resting, guilty for slowing down, guilty for existing imperfectly. They think every moment must be optimized towards self-improvement, as if their humanity depends on constant progress. But endless self-optimization can become another form of self-rejection. A quiet message saying, "I will allow myself peace only after I become someone else." That mindset destroys people slowly, because peace keeps getting postponed endlessly into the future. And eventually life passes while you remain emotionally absent from it. Maintenance bravery interrupts this cycle. It says, "I may not fully understand my direction yet, but I refuse to abandon myself meanwhile." That sentence alone contains enormous strength, because self-abandonment has become normalized. People disappear into distraction, into work, into relationships, into substances, into endless noise. Anything to avoid sitting beside their own unfinished soul honestly. But there is something sacred about staying. Staying with yourself long enough to hear what your deeper life is trying to say beneath the confusion. And often it speaks softly, not through dramatic revelations, through rhythms, instincts, repeated longings, quiet intuitions that return again and again despite distraction. Your real life often whispers before it shouts, but exhausted people cannot hear whispers. That is why slowing down matters, not laziness. Recovery of perception, a rebuilding of internal listening, because becoming is not always about force. Sometimes it is about attention. The patient attention required to notice what parts of yourself are trying to emerge naturally. And emergence takes time. A flower forced open too early dies. A song interrupted constantly never finds melody. Even grief unfolds rhythmically, some days manageable, some days unbearable again. Healing is rarely linear. Neither is identity. That is why personal cadence matters more than external timelines. Your life has its own rhythm, its own seasons, its own developmental pace. And comparing that rhythm constantly against strangers online creates psychological violence against yourself. Some people bloom publicly at 22 and collapse internally by 35. Others wander uncertainly for years before discovering profound meaning later in life. There is no universal schedule for becoming, only movement, and movement does not always look dramatic externally. Sometimes movement is simply refusing to give up today, refusing to numb yourself completely, refusing to stop caring, refusing to stop building quietly even while no one notices yet. That is defiant, deeply defiant, because hopelessness has become contagious in modern culture. People expect collapse now, expect burnout, expect emptiness. So choosing to continue consciously becomes radical. To keep tending your inner life, keep protecting your sensitivity, keep creating, keep learning. Keep breathing through uncertainty instead of demanding immediate resolution. That is self-creation happening in real time. Not glamorous, not loud, but real. And perhaps the most profound transformations are not explosive at all. Perhaps they happen gradually through ordinary moments repeated with enough honesty. A person waking up daily and choosing not to abandon themselves anymore. A person learning how to remain present while unfinished. A person discovering that unresolved does not mean unworthy. That is the rhythm, slow, steady, human, and maybe that rhythm was never delaying your becoming. Maybe it was becoming itself. The radical power of still becoming. Perhaps the greatest lie ever sold to human beings is that they must become complete before they become worthy. Complete enough to be loved. Complete enough to begin. Complete enough to rest. Complete enough to exist without apology. So people spend their lives chasing a final version of themselves that never truly arrives. A perfected identity. A stable conclusion. A permanent state of certainty, untouched by contradiction or change. But life refuses this fantasy constantly. Even the people who appear most complete privately continue unraveling and rebuilding themselves in ways the world never sees. Because existence itself is movement. A river does not fail because it keeps flowing. The sky does not fail because it changes every hour. Only humans interpret transformation as evidence that something is wrong with them. But what if becoming was never a problem to solve? What if it was the point? What if the unfinished sentence was not a grammatical error, but an open invitation? An invitation to remain alive enough to keep evolving, to keep questioning, to keep discovering dimensions of yourself that certainty would have buried permanently. There is radical power in refusing premature finality, especially now, because modern society constantly pressures people toward fixed identities, predictable beliefs, marketable personalities. Everyone is expected to condense themselves into digestible summaries. A bio, a label, a role. Something easy for systems and strangers to process quickly. But real human beings cannot be summarized honestly. Not fully. A human soul contains too many contradictions for neat conclusions. Too many seasons. Too many deaths and rebirths. Too many hidden versions that emerge only under certain forms of pain or love or solitude. And perhaps wisdom begins the moment you stop demanding that your existence become easily explainable. The moment you realize that clarity and mystery can coexist, that you can move forward without fully understanding yourself yet. That becoming is not weakness. It is evidence of consciousness still expanding, because stagnant people rarely question themselves deeply. Only evolving people experience the discomfort of inner movement. Only living minds feel the tension between old identities and emerging truths. That tension can feel exhausting sometimes, like carrying invisible weight through ordinary days. But there is beauty hidden inside that weight, a kind of sacred incompletion. You are witnessing yourself in motion. Most people never allow themselves this honestly. They lock themselves into identities too early, protect old versions of themselves obsessively, become loyal to outdated narratives because certainty feels emotionally safer than transformation. And slowly they stop growing, not externally perhaps. Externally they may succeed, accumulate status, recognition, stability, but internally something closes. Curiosity fades, wonder fades, flexibility disappears. The soul hardens around old conclusions. That is why some people feel emotionally ancient at 30. Not because of age, because they stopped becoming. They stopped listening for new parts of themselves trying to emerge. But unfinished people remain porous to life, open to surprise, open to revision, open to deeper truths. That openness is powerful, painfully powerful, because openness requires vulnerability. You must accept that parts of yourself will continue changing, that certainty will continue collapsing occasionally, that identity itself may remain fluid far longer than society considers comfortable. But fluidity is not failure. Water survives because it adapts. Rigid structures break first during earthquakes. Nature rewards flexibility constantly. Yet modern culture teaches people to fear inner movement, to fear changing their minds, to fear admitting uncertainty, to fear evolving publicly. So many people remain trapped inside old selves simply because transformation feels socially dangerous. But a life spent performing certainty is not freedom. Freedom requires the courage to remain unfinished publicly sometimes, to admit I am still learning, I am still changing, I am still becoming. Those sentences contain humility, but also immense strength. Because only secure people can tolerate not having all the answers. Insecure people rush toward rigid conclusions to protect themselves from uncertainty. Secure people can breathe inside open-endedness without collapsing. That ability becomes increasingly important in the modern world, because the future itself is unfinished now. Humanity is entering strange territory, artificial intelligence reshaping meaning, technology altering identity, entire social structures evolving faster than emotional wisdom can keep pace. Everything feels transitional. Civilization itself feels like an unfinished sentence right now. And perhaps that is why so many people feel fragmented internally. The external world mirrors the inner experience. We are collectively suspended between old realities and emerging possibilities, between who humanity has been and what it might become. No wonder people feel disoriented. No wonder certainty feels unstable. But maybe this collective uncertainty contains hidden potential too, because periods of transition create openings for reinvention, for deeper awareness, for entirely new ways of understanding what it means to be human. And perhaps your personal fragmentation is not separate from this larger human story. Perhaps you are participating in the ancient experience every conscious person eventually faces, the realization that life cannot be mastered through rigid conclusions. It can only be inhabited honestly, moment by moment, breath by breath, version by version. And maybe the people who impact the world most deeply are not the ones who achieve perfect resolution. Maybe they are the ones courageous enough to remain open to growth, open to contradiction, open to mystery, open to becoming, because becoming keeps the soul alive, keeps perception alive, keeps wonder alive. The unfinished sentence still contains possibility. The closed sentence does not. That is why some unfinished lives feel more profound than perfectly organized ones. There is movement inside them, searching, depth, an ongoing conversation with existence itself. And perhaps the most beautiful thing a person can become is not complete. Perhaps it is deeply, consciously alive, alive enough to continue evolving long after the world demanded certainty, alive enough to remain curious despite pain, alive enough to let old identities die when truth outgrows them, alive enough to resist turning themselves into a finished product for public comfort. Because the most profound human beings are rarely easy to summarize. They overflow categories, contradict themselves honestly, continue expanding across decades. They remain unfinished intentionally, not because they are lost, because they understand something essential. A closed story no longer breathes. So maybe stop asking when your life will finally begin. Maybe this uncertainty is life. Maybe this unfinishedness is not evidence that you are broken. Maybe it is evidence that your humanity is still unfolding exactly as it should. And if these words found you during a season where you feel fragmented, do not rush to conclude yourself too quickly. Some souls are too vast to become simple sentences. They were meant to remain poems still being written.